going today? Why are we here? So we're here to talk about business agility and OKRs in 2023. We are going to make a case for it. And ideally, you're each going to be walking away thinking about what are some of the constraints facing your business today, and how could something like agility and OKRs really help you navigate some of those constraints to achieve greatness in 2023. When I shared that with the group, Carina said to me, "Oh, Carolyn, that's so you." It is. It's so me. I just want you all to just transform and be great. And so to get us started, I actually want to sort of put you in the right frame of mind. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute to consider each of your businesses right now. Consider where you are today, January 19th, 2023. When we got on the call, Jasmine was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even believe we're already like 3 weeks into it." Take a moment to think, what are some of the challenges, either internally with people, projects, profits, processes, the 4 Ps, that are challenging you, or externally in your environment, in the economy, anything sort of external that might be challenging your business today. So take a moment. I'm not going to, actually, I am going to put you on the spot. Take a moment and write them down. Once you've got 2 or 3, we're going to have a fun. We're going to play a little game just right off the start. We are going to put in the chat your 2 or 3 challenges, your 2 or 3 constraints. So keep them like high level. Obviously, like the number 1 challenge I'm hearing over and over again is finding the right people. I had a call this morning with a company, and we were talking about what I love to talk about is benchmarking for the right role. And I'm like, "Well, what are you looking for in your role?" And he's like, "A pulse." And I'm like, "No, we're not hiring for a pulse these days." Okay. So what are your constraints? So take it now from your notebook, put it in the chat. Do not hit enter until I say enter. It's a super fun game. Just like play along with me. All right. Okay. So we're going to hit enter, put it in the chat. Give me a thumbs up when a few of you have put your constraints in your chat or your challenges in your chat. Right now I'm looking at James and Louise. Got my camera on you guys. Give me a thumbs up. Hi, Pam. Hi, Nikki. Have you got your constraints ready to go in the chat, Pam? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, guys. When I say 1, you're going to hit enter. So 3, 2, 1, enter. Here we go. Chat storming it up. Now, everybody just take a couple of minutes to read through everybody's answers. Great. Human capital, SOPs, macroeconomic uncertainties, supply chain, people, recession, people, opportunities. I love Krista. I say challenges, and she's like, the challenge is that there's too many opportunities. Krista, like, yes. Sorry. Okay. So team, take a minute, and I'm going to just stop sharing here for 1 second. I've gotten big into the chat because I want you to actually focus on reading other people's answers. And now what I want you to do for a second is think about what you're noticing. What are you observing? What are you noticing here? What's the first thing that pops as you read other people's answers? Put some of your answers into the chat. And you can do that anytime. Similar issues. Thanks, Denny. Great. Anything else? Common themes? Yeah. Okay. So doesn't it make you sort of feel better to know that we've got all these people from all of these different industries and all these different businesses, and there are some very common challenges and constraints facing us today? So therein lies our opportunity, as Krista said. So right now, I want to turn the mic over to Melanie, get back to sharing the screen, and make this case for why business and why business agility in 2023 can really be transformational for businesses through these challenging times. Great. So Melanie, over to you.
Good to meet everyone, and Happy New Year. I'll start with a question. How many of you have seen organizations grow and wish you could keep moving fast and stay nimble? Want to give me a little emoji? Does that sound familiar for some of you? So it's a bit of a shared experience for some of you. And as the organization gets bigger, it's a bigger ship, right, to navigate. So we need to tool ourselves differently to be able to navigate in a way that's nimble and cohesive. That's a word I'll come back to again and again. How do we navigate change in a cohesive manner? Next slide, please. So I'll add a few more challenges that we see in 2023. The rate of change is accelerating. I don't think I'm breaking any news here. So how do we organize ourselves to adapt to change in a cohesive way? A couple of years ago, McKinsey released a study talking about a large number of organizations need to evolve their business model, how they operate, and even how they deliver their products and services. 2 years later, I think a large portion of this data remains true. The third one speaks directly to the people in our organizations. How can we engage the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis and make sure that everybody shows up to work motivated, excited to bring their best each day? And this is an opportunity to keep evolving leadership skills as we move from managing for output to leading for outcomes. So this is where today, when we talk about OKRs, it's a great opportunity for everybody across the organization to develop this new mindset, these new skills to lead for outcome. The last one is about prioritization. Yep.
How was your trip?
Hi, someone. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks, Melanie. Keep going.
Yes. The last point here is about prioritization. We work on our strategy, we do our strategic plan, and what we often see throughout the year is that we start to spread ourselves thin. We add new things, there are new opportunities, and I think it's human nature to want to say yes. So we take on extra work, but what happens is that it becomes difficult to get projects across the finish line to deliver value in a timely way. So again, this is where OKRs can be a great tool to achieve that, to address that. Next slide, please. So business agility. Business agility is the ability to adapt to change. And I like to think of two ends of a spectrum. We can adapt to change with chaos or cohesively. And most organizations adapt to change somewhere in between those two poles. There are 4 dimensions of business agility: strategic. So how do we adapt to new opportunities, risks that we see, whether they are internal or external events? Business agility around innovation. How do we continue to develop and deliver products and services that will really answer customer needs in a delightful way? Operational. How do we adapt how we deliver and produce our products and services? If you're in manufacturing during COVID, a lot of companies adapted what they produce, for instance, to produce PPI. So that was a big demonstration of business agility. And the last aspect of business agility, our internal processes, is actually the processes that will allow us to be agile and nimble and move cohesively as an organization. So business agility requires a high level of transparency and alignment across the organization. So when we lack transparency and alignment, we are in that little boat there where 2 people are rowing in different directions. Another image I have in my head is everybody's tugging on a different corner of the picnic blanket. The boat we want to be in is where everybody's rowing in the same direction. So that alignment it's something we build every day, day in, day out. Next slide, please. So alignment is assumed. There was a study, it's already from 4 years ago, and I think it's still relevant today again. It was from MIT Sloan. And their study showed that only half of the top leadership team could list 3 of their company's top priorities. Why do you think that is? Could a couple of people share some thoughts on why that might be? What have you seen in your organizations, past and present?
I'm going to call out Pam. Pam, why do you think that is? She's like, no, don't call on me.
Sorry. No, I just, technical issues. Yeah, they don't know them themselves.
That's a good answer. Jasmine, what do you think?
I think the same. Like they don't really understand what the actual priorities are.
Yeah. Sometimes they're not clear. Sometimes there are too many, and we get confused as to what they are. My former business partner used to work at Cisco, and the way strategy and priorities were set each year is senior VPs would contribute 5 slides to a huge deck, and that was how they communicated their priorities. That was incoherent. So this is when they decided to adopt OKRs as well to bring some clarity to what were priorities.
Melanie, can I jump in here? What I see is that the top leaders, they get busy doing the work and they have an idea of what their priorities are, but they don't slow down enough to actually like write them down or put them in a place where they're looking at them consistently, and nor are they communicating them. So a lot of the companies that I see that I work with, they're just constantly reacting to the work on hand. And it's like leadership by crisis management.
Thank you for that. And what I often hear as well from leadership teams is that they have the impression that they're communicating clearly. And if we look at this, the decay rate here is that people on the front line have a fuzzy idea of what the priorities are. So on a day-to-day basis, as people make decisions on what to work on, we spread ourselves thin, and that can result with a feeling of frustration across the organization. Why is it so hard to get results? All right, so you're at the right place today. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of OKRs. OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results, and I understand that many of you are already on your OKR journey. OKR is a simple and effective goal-setting technique to connect strategy and execution. It was developed in the 70s in California at Intel by Andy Grove. And John Doerr, who actually worked for Andy, wrote a book, Measure What Matters, a few years ago on his experience at Intel and the experience at Google when he invested in the company in 1998. So the book generated a lot of interest, but it is not an implementation guide, right? So I've worked with a number of organizations who tried to implement OKRs reading this book, and they needed a little extra support. So we'll be talking a little bit about that today as well. All right, some of the benefits. Organizations of all sizes can use OKRs for rapid alignment on strategic priorities. And I think Google is a great example of that. So when John Doerr invested in Google and asked them to do OKRs, I think there were about 10 or 12 people in the organization, and large part of Google still does OKRs today. So it's really seen them at all stages of growth to stay focused on the priorities. The second one is that organizations can have a greater impact with existing resources, and that speaks directly to labor shortages that we can see in some organizations. So by clearing the smoke, by having greater clarity on the priorities, we can actually achieve more together. The third one is decision-making can be pushed down deeper into the org. There was a study a few years ago that talked about decision latency, how long it takes for organizations to make decisions, and it was directly correlated with the success of projects. So the shorter the decision latency, the greater achievement people can have. So all that's connected to people bringing their best each day at work. And the last one, again, OKRs speak directly to a younger generation of workers who seek to understand how their work connects to purpose, makes an impact, and contributes to company success. So always come back to the theory of motivation, purpose, autonomy, mastery. And OKRs can help enable that. All right, next slide, please. And I'll let Carina speak to the 3 A's. That's one of her favorite.
It is. And I think, Darren, you heard this before. Autonomy without alignment is chaos. We spoke about this before. And it's one of my, I truly love the 3 A's. And I think Carolyn is now, she has adopted this one. So alignment, autonomy, and accountability, they come together, right? You cannot give autonomy without the alignment. And I think that image of the boats, the rowing boats, that's what can happen, the chaos, rowing different directions. Or you can think about that car, that little game, right, that you go in and people are crashing into each other instead of following the same rule. And also, you cannot expect accountability without moving people through that purpose, to dream big and then be accountable for just of doing the task instead of like, I'm accountable for this outcome and I'm inspired to do more and go above and beyond.
Yeah, I finally figured out how to unmute myself, guys. So thanks for your patience. But really, when I think of what we're talking about today, these 3 words do really light me up. And so I'm totally drinking the Kool-Aid, as you said, Carina, because, you know, I was in a situation a couple months ago with a business. I was like, what are your objectives? They're like, well, we have to triple our revenue. Like, we have to go fast in the next year, like so fast. And I'm like, awesome, let's do it. Let's go. And my stakeholder that I was working with, like, made a decision, and then out of nowhere, someone came around. Like, a lot of work had gone into the decision that she made, and out of nowhere, someone came along and completely took the wind out of her sails. And it was such a reflection to me. It was such a reflection to me that when we don't give our employees the autonomy to like roll with their ideas, there's no way that company's going to triple their revenue. I can tell you that right now, that if a decision, such a small decision on the chain of decisions, got overridden, they don't have the autonomy, nor do they have the alignment to achieve the results that they're going to get. So that's why these 3 really light me up, because when we supercharge our employees, our team, through alignment, autonomy, and accountability, then we can go fast. So I just couldn't help myself. Melanie, take it over.
Good. So if there's one slide, one of the 2 slides to take away today, it's this one.
Yes, it's this one. Screenshot this one. We all want alignment, autonomy, and accountability, especially if you want to move fast in your companies.
Awesome. Next slide. So this slide, that's the other one to screenshot. OKRs help us evolve towards an outcome mindset. And I think a great example of that is when John F. Kennedy in 1962 said, by the end of this decade, we want to send a man to the moon and bring him back alive. And of course, there was a lot of work that supported this vision. What JFK did not say is, let's build a rocket and see where we can go. And often that's how we work. We go from strategy to strategic plan, and we go right into the deliverables, the output, but we forget, what are the outcomes that we actually want to achieve? What are the results we want to achieve? And actually my theory, I have a theory around conflict. The more we can ground our conversations in the outcomes we want to achieve together, then when it's time to solution, we're aligned and we move in the right direction. So if any one of you test out this theory, let me know. Next slide. So outcomes versus output, the difference between outcomes and output can be hard to spot. I think they can be highly contextual. A great question to ask is, what is the highest level of value we can deliver this quarter? What is the win? If you click forward, Carolyn, I think we'll see the little ladder. A few more clicks just to let them come up. Good. I often work with teams and they say, all right, this quarter we're going to publish training material. I'll push on that a little bit. What if you publish training material and nothing happens? It goes unused. Have you been successful? Maybe not. All right. So our goal this quarter is to not only publish the training material, but the big win this quarter will be that 3 new hires review the training materials during onboarding. So at least it's being used. And maybe next quarter we can push that value ladder even higher, and we'll have the evidence that our training material has been effective when we see that new hires meet their targets within 45 days. So what is the win this quarter, and how can we push it up this value ladder? Next slide, please. So a quick overview of the OKR syntax. The objective, those are the goals that we to provide clarity on intent and direction. They are qualitative. This is where, I might differ from John Doerr. The objectives typically span 6 to 18 months. So we often think about our objectives as yearly objectives. Over time, we'll find the right formula for our company, this mix of specific and achievable, and aspirational and inspirational. It's a great communication tool in your company to inspire everyone to bring their best. Often, the objectives can be seen through the lens of growth, innovation, customer, people, operational excellence, or continuity. And we typically have 3 to 5 objectives per team. I was working with a company in Florida last year, and when we started out, the leadership team created 6 objectives for the company. And they felt strongly about those 6 objectives, so it's like, awesome, we'll go with 6. And they set the OKRs underneath those 6 objectives. After the first quarter, I visit them again. I'm like, hey team, how's it going? They said, wow, Melanie, we have more than we can chew. It's like way too much. We're going to remove a few key results. Awesome. We do our reset for the quarter. And I visit them again at the end of the second quarter. Hey team, how's it going? We still have too much. We're going to slash 6 objectives down to 3. And the impact was immediately felt across the company. Priorities were crystal clear. So that's for the objectives. The key results are outcomes by which success is measured. So those are quantitative, from and to. How do we want to move the needle this quarter? Key results are reset quarterly. So your objectives will be that longer goal. And each quarter we'll ask ourselves, what will be the evidence of success towards our objective this quarter? And typically we set 4 to 6 key results per objectives. All right, next slide. Oh, I think we skipped one. Yeah. The OKR alignment, this is really the power of the OKR practice in your organization. This is where it helps evolve leadership skills. It creates this alignment and transparency across the organization. So we start with the level 1 OKRs. Those are at the company level. And these are typically developed by your executive leadership team, senior leadership team. The reason is because it's closest to strategy and it's that translation layer. Once you do your L1 OKRs, you'll do a readout to the company explaining why, right? The words, the intent behind the words. After that, all of your level 2 teams, here I give 2 examples of level 2 teams: sales, marketing, it can be IT, it can be operations, will develop their own OKRs as aligned up to the level 1. What we're not doing here is level 1 pushing down, dictating the level 2 OKRs. We're talking about autonomy, where the level 2 ask themselves, what's within our power to do to support those level 1 OKRs? And part of the magic, in a moment, I'll talk about the tie-off event, is when all of those level 2 teams come together to do the tie-off, to share what are their priorities for the year, for the quarter, using their OKRs. depending on the size of your organization, and organizations tend to be lopsided. You'll have very deep departments in some areas, and then we can do level 3, level 4, and so on. So this is the alignment, the OKR alignment. So if there's another one to screenshot today, it would be that one. All right, we'll do a little exercise. Next one, next slide. Actually, because of time, I'm giving you some examples here how an objective can be translated deeper into the organization. So as part of your strategy, let's say you had you're a Canadian company, you had some early success in the US, and you saw that your product or services resonate with the Latin market in the US. So as part of your strategy for next year, it's like, great, we want to enter Spain and Mexico to start validating, further validating our business hypothesis. So this is where your marketing team as a level 2, they might have for an objective, we make a splash in Spain and Mexico. This might seem really, really obvious. I was working with a company recently. The example here has been changed, but they would say, well, we make a splash outside of Canada. No. We're making a splash specifically in Spain and Mexico. It's important to be precise, because what if an opportunity shows up in Japan? Should you pursue it? Not without a conversation, right? So everybody's orienting themselves to push as hard as possible Spain and Mexico. If something happens in Japan, we'll have a conversation and see if we pivot as one cohesively once again. All right, next slide. I often get asked, Melanie, what is the difference between a KPI and an OKR? A lot of KPIs can be OKRs, but they're not all OKRs. Or key results, I should be more precise, key results. And I like to use a cooking analogy. KPIs stands for key performance indicators, but over time we have a proliferation of indicators. So we have a lot. So as an organization, we'll keep an eye on many metrics. So our KPIs, I think of them on the back burner. We let them simmer, keep an eye on it. On the front burner, this is where we bring our key results. Where do we want to actively work to move the needle on over the next 90 days? I'll first give a health example. Carolyn, next. So with our personal health throughout our lives, right? Some KPIs, our blood pressure, body temperature, hours of sleep. Most of the time that's within norm. KPI, back burner, maybe we check it once a year at our physical. If our health is out of balance and we need to move the needle back to within a range, whether we have a cold or a fever or high blood pressure, then that needs action. So this would be my key result. Front burner, I'm actively working to move the needle back within a certain range. In a business context, next. This is where we might think of our operating costs, customer churn, employee attrition. If you're in a fast growth phase of the business, your operating costs, you might not be managing them when you're trying to stabilize and increase your profitability. So depending on where you are, customer churn, you might have be in regular range, cool KPI back burner. If you realize that for some reasons you have a high customer churn, you move it to your front burner and you address it through your OKRs. So this is how I think about it. Curious if it resonates.
Yeah, I do think, Melanie, what I see commonly is, that those KPIs act as sort of like our barometer, like they're telling us if we're on or if we're off. But if we really want to make change by creating a key result out of it, like defining what we want to be different, really helps people orient their brains around solving that problem a little bit differently. That's the difference that I like. Like KPIs, it does really feel like you can just like set and forget. Whereas with key results, there's something a little bit more action oriented about it. That's what I like.
Yeah. And revenue can be an interesting one. Often with key results, we think, what can we do further upstream that will be the evidence of success towards our revenue? So revenue can be your KPI, and your key results will measure items further upstream. Can be your pipeline for your sales pipeline and so on.
Great.
All right, next slide. So here it's a bird's eye view of a sample OKR calendar. So we have a rhythm of setting OKRs quarterly. In my mind, I think about a big reset and a little reset. The big reset is when we rework our objectives for the new year. And the little reset each quarter is when we ask ourselves, are these objectives still true? Have they been accomplished? Do we close them? Do we need to change them? Yes, no. And then we set the key results underneath. So the cadence at each quarter, I mentioned it a minute ago, level 1 OKRs, executive team, read out. Level 2 teams set the OKRs, there's a tie-off. And then level 3, and you go deeper into your org. The first time you implement OKRs in your organization, it will take longer. It's a new muscle, something new to practice. As time goes by, it will get quicker. Everybody will know how to do it, how to facilitate those conversations. And when you start, it's nice to have coaches to help show the way.
I'm just going to jump in here too and say that, like, I know that a lot of people when implementing this process get really hung up on, am I writing the right objective? Am I writing the key results? And what I've seen and what I sort of believe to be true is that adopting the process is the priority over adopting the perfect OKR in the first year. Do you agree? Is that what you've seen in your experience, that having companies adopt this implementation process is far more important than necessarily nailing the right OKR in the first year?
You're spot on, Carolyn. And that was actually my journey as a coach. At first, I thought my job was to get teams to create a perfect set of OKRs, and actually to get the practice going, to get that visibility across the organization, and to keep refining and iterating on our practice. That's the win. All right, over to you, Carina.
Yeah, that's a good segue because Melanie was actually my OKR coach. I got my certification through Melanie, and I'm a huge fan. And every time I hear her speaking, like, I want to make notes of something new that I learned. And that stove example analogy of OKRs and KPIs, I love that one. And actually, I was able to make use of that yesterday. So thank you, Melanie. I hope everybody's getting the same exciting value. What I want to bring here is the value of implementing this with a change management lens. There is no C without an M in change management for me. So I have my partner here, Michelle. She's somewhere in there amongst the people. She might cut me off if I say something wrong. But it's important for us to see this OKR as a journey, as Carolyn was saying, right? The beginning will be the process, and then we will be perfecting the continuous improvement that Melanie was talking about. That's the mindset of the OKR, continuous improvement, not just for achieving your goals, but also within the implementation process. So there is a technical side of the implementation that you need to do, like a checklist of things in the beginning. It goes even earlier than the first quarter. It's like deciding on the tools, the cadence to be followed, like that will be following through, for example, your fiscal year, set up that calendar, the events that would be required, identify and train the champions, and identify this change strategy that you're going to require. From the people side of the change, we need to have a very strong sponsor, and then I'm putting here the ABC. That's a concept that comes from ProSci and change management. It needs to be a person that can be very active, that can build a coalition, and that it's like willing to be always communicating, because you're going to need a lot of transparency, get people buy in and excited about this. It's a new muscle, it's a change. It's a change of not only the mindset, but also a change of their current process that they are following. You need to build that coalition and communicate why now, why we're doing this, just because somebody said so, or what is the impact that we're looking for. It's almost like the chicken and egg, because you need an OKR for your change management as well. And one thing that we've seen is do not forget to bring the people managers into why you're doing this and how they can help being that coach, being your ally, because they are the closest ones to where the change is actually being implemented or impact about the people their day to day. And if we just keep that just at the leadership level, that coaching, we're going to miss out on that coaching. And we won't see the effect going down the line to all the levels. And there's a waste of time. So then in the second, third quarters, in terms of the technical side, you need to identify those early wins. And then you will have develop the expertise of the OKRs. And on the managing, you need to be collecting the insights and feedback and that constantly improvement. Because sometimes we collect feedback, but we don't act on it, or we don't show the actions. So we're just collecting just to say, oh, we hear you, but we hear you and we implement your feedback. And identify those points of resistance by managing the root cause. Some people might be like, well, we're using a different tool before, I'm not used to, but like, what is the reason why they're being resistant? And then be transparent. That's the core piece of OKR, and also agility and continuous coaching. And then don't forget to, after, reinforce this and celebrate. Make sure not celebrate just the early wins, but continue to celebrate the success. And you can talk about the actions that were not successful and why we're doing to change. And then ensure that you're connecting that business results to the implementation of OKR. So people see the connection. We changed the process, we changed the mindset, and here are the results. Do not announce the results just at the leadership level. Make sure that those results are announced across the board. And reinforce the best practice. Some teams might be getting to the journey faster than others, and they can help each other. You can leverage those successful teams. And continue to collect the insights, because this journey from Google has been a long time, and for you can also work for a long time. So do not forget, change management is quite undermined for some leaders still. Do not forget that you need the people side to be managed. And OKR is almost like one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about OKRs, is because it's already included, it's embedded. But make that more specific, more intentional when you're going through your journey, especially in the communication, the sponsorship, and the resistance management plan. Back to you, Melanie.
Next slide. All right. So to build on what Carina was saying, as part of the transformation, we really want to integrate OKRs into our existing business rhythm. So as we do our yearly strategic planning, we want to connect it to our OKRs, the objectives yearly, quarterly cadence, and then to use that data in your monthly operations reviews, your QBRs, so to really integrate it into how the business is run. And then weekly, teams calibrate on their OKRs. That is really the cornerstone. There was actually some research done that teams that look at their OKRs weekly, talk about their OKRs weekly, and ask the question, what do we need to do this week to move the needle on those key results, are about 20% more likely to achieve their results, right, than if they look at them once a month. So that practice is really powerful. And again, it's iterative. And with a good change management approach, it can really become part of the DNA of the company. All right. Over to you, Carolyn.
So I'm going to just stop sharing for 1 second, because as the newer OKR voice at the table, between us three. I really want to orient you guys to some of the key learnings that have stood out for me through learning this OKR journey. Okay. First things first is this new concept of an outcome mindset. That historically it was like, I want to climb up a mountain. I want to climb Everest. So what are the steps that I need to take there? Well, that thinking, that sort of historical set the goals, what are the steps? To me, what I see is that creates just busy work. Busy makes busy, and busy is busy is busy. And everybody on here is so busy. But what OKRs invite us to is shift our way of thinking in a new and different way, to go from output, busy, busy, busy work to what are the actual results that I want to achieve. And just like Melanie just finished off, that like we're taking it at the 10,000 foot level and we're bringing it down to the weekly level. What is it that I need to be focused on? What does this team need to be focused on in order to achieve that key result? And how do I manage my time around that? So outcome mindset was a big shift for me in learning about OKRs. The second, which I've already talked about, is like really pause and think for a second about what would it be like to surround myself with a team who were accountable, aligned, and autonomous. Like, to me, that's the steroid. That's the drug. That is the superpower in achieving all of this. And then third, really simply put, done is better than perfect. That if we are to make a change, if we are to make a shift to a new framework like OKRs, setting the rhythm, having the cadence of like plan, do, check, like that's a simple term, but there's a lot of different ways to explain that. But having that rhythm is the win. Because I will argue 95% of the businesses that I start working with do not have a defined, scheduled rhythm that everybody knows about, and when everybody knows when it's going to happen and what's expected by them. So those are the three things that I really want to orient you to. Actually, I got to say fourth, because change management is like, that's the red thread. What Carina and Michelle do every day, like that is the red thread that pulls the people and the strategy execution together. Okay, that is why we are making this case today, that in these times of uncertainty with constraints in the world all around us, and it's just like all we're seeing is obstacle, 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 we have to find the light. We have to see the way through in new and different ways. And by empowering our teams to adopt growth mindsets, like that's what I bring to the table, by empowering our teams to adopt growth mindsets and implement strategy using a framework like this, you'll find the light. You'll find the way through. So pause for 1 second. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. I want you to really think about your business. Don't worry, you don't have to share this with anybody, just yourself. What could be 3 transformational outcomes that your business could achieve or will achieve? It's up to you how you want to define it. What are 3 transformational outcomes your business could achieve, will achieve in 2023? Write them down right now. Once you've written them down, just play a little sports psychologist here. I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Fast forward January 2024 and see yourself like experiencing that change. See yourself experiencing that outcome. If I was there and I was taking a picture of this, of you in this moment having achieved this outcome, what would I be taking a picture of? Close your eyes for a second. See it. Feel yourself there. Okay, team. It's time for questions. So if you have a question, you can put up your hand and we will do our best to navigate it. I know sometimes with question period, it takes a little to get it going. So I'm going to start because I'm the host. I get to start with my question. Melanie, something that's come up recently with my clients is, really wanting some sort of an accountability structure, like an employee performance management plan or or a management plan, sort of like something that they can track. And I know that sort of these management plans aren't typically part of the OKR language, but what do you see businesses who have implemented OKR, how are they helping their level 3s sort of track and be accountable to their own key results? What's the language? How are you seeing this happen? Could you give us like an example of what that nuanced difference is?
So Carolyn, I think the question you're asking is, what is the relationship between OKRs and performance management?
Yeah. Or is there a way to help people stay on track with their key results, and how are they doing that?
With OKRs, we attach OKRs to teams, and we invite all the individuals on the team to work to contribute to those outcomes. There's room for OKRs at the individual level to think about professional goals. Let's say, Carolyn, that you're a manager and you would like to become a director, right? What's some of the personal goals that you can set yourself between you and your manager to say, this year, Carolyn, I will make myself more visible in the organization. I'll speak to 3 town halls as an evidence that I am promotable, right? It's very different than using personal OKRs for task management. If we go back to theory of motivation, nobody wants to, be micromanaged, and we want to elevate the conversation. We want to be able to focus on outcomes, and we let everyone organize themselves for those results. And then,
so if I'm understanding this correctly, they'll have key results for themselves as they're aligned to the business strategy, but then they might have a secondary process between their manager to help them with their own game, if you will.
Right. Business OKRs are at the team level.
Yeah.
Personal, professional development you can use OKRs, but I caution against using OKRs to track work.
Okay.
Because we
track performance.
The notion of working as teams.
Yeah.
Let's say, Carolyn, you and I are in a team and we each have to deliver 10 units of something. I've delivered 8 units. You've delivered, let's say 8 as well, but you have the opportunity to deliver 6 units if I help you. What should I do? Go after my own 2 units? So I meet my performance management plan, or say for the team, I'm going to help you. So this is why it's very powerful to elevate at the team level. So we work together.
Fantastic.
Very passionate about that topic.
I know. Well, I feel like I could keep asking questions, but I want to keep moving us along. Quiva, thank you for joining. What's your question, friend?
Sorry, I was late.
It's okay.
Great session. Thank you so much, folks. I work for a large company with a large engineering division, and we are tracking OKRs. But what tends to happen is the OKRs for engineering become similar to that task list of, we hit we have these 20 different GAs or submissions that we need to get in. So it becomes this kind of like we either did it or we didn't task list. And I'm curious, for engineering specifically, do you have any advice for how to write constructive OKRs that the team can get behind? Because the other challenge we have is that they're updating multiple systems because they're working out of Jira and they're working out of different places to track that work. And we're having trouble pushing the value of them also updating their OKRs because the OKRs are now a task list. So yeah, any advice on that would be really helpful.
What's interesting is the connection between OKRs and an agile process. Right. So each week, each sprint, you define your work and, your sprints and so on. The OKRs is the opportunity to ask, what is the win? How are we moving the needle? And I understand that engineering, it's very often delivery focused, But by asking the win, what is the win this quarter for our team? It helps to elevate the conversation. It might still be deliverables, but it will help clear the smoke a little bit. So away from that intense to-do list.
Yeah, Cliff, we were having this conversation, I think this week with some of our teams, that they were focusing feature delivery instead of like, what is the outcome of that feature, right? And it's very easy for engineering and software developers to think about the outputs and not the outcomes. But it's important to have a business representation somehow. The value, it shouldn't be busy work in terms of the delivery. They should be delivering value to the organization. And maybe bringing like the customer centricity to their mindset would help. So when they close their eyes, like, what is their contribution to the organization once that is out of the door, right? Like, and Michelle and I did that exercise of just like, what is the value? Like, what does it mean? And keep asking questions. So if we deliver this feature, what does it mean? Like, if it's not connected to a pain point or opportunity or value for your end customer, should that even be delivered? Like, is that the right place that we should be focusing our time? It's not easy for software developers and engineers, but once they get in with that product, that customer representation mindset, they get so much more effective, and it's exciting.
If I can add also, there's the opportunity for a cross-functional team, a product team, and there's engineering on that team. So this is where, as a cross-functional team, we can talk about the results we want. You know, new features will be released. How will we measure impact? Now, what that does, it frees up the engineering teams to talk about what is specifically true to engineering. And one example would be, well, we want to keep working on reducing our technical debt. Let's go track that, right, as a win.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did that give you some new ideas? Like, what's popping for you as most relevant?
Yeah, I like the idea of tying it back to the customer centric, like what problems is actually solving if we do achieve this piece, and making sure that they understand the impact and the connection to the work that they're doing. And I think, like, yeah, sometimes we have, you know, sometimes for us, like the win is just submitting to the FTA, or the win is, you know, like the compiling everything for GA to pass it over to another team. So like, I think maybe we don't need the granular level of the individual engineering teams in there. We just kind of need the higher level. What's the roll up? What's the impact? And not to burden the other teams with that when they are truly task focused, and let their leaders take the ownership of the outcome. Focus more on that.
Yeah. I would say Carina taught me that if there's tasks in there, you take them out completely, and that it should always be the highest value the key result can bring. And I know lots of people have to go, so feel free that you don't have to say any beautiful goodbyes. But if some of you do want to stick around and sort of pick our brains a little bit more and jump into this conversation, Queeve, I think you've given us like a really great real-time case study and proof that like this is an iterative process, that every time we do it, we're just going to need to have this understanding and acceptance that it's going to be messy to start, but we're just going to keep working on it to try and get better and better at it. So thank you so much, everybody. If anyone is interested in sort of exploring how to transform these businesses, how to create those amazing outcomes that you've already envisioned for yourself in 2023, and you want to sort of align yourself with a team of champions, you know who to call, right? That's us.